going to go off on a very long tangent about the white feminism of it all. So if you want to listen, go ahead, stay here, but know that this is going to go off for a very long time. And where this started is from the standpoint that it's been playing in the back of my mind for at least the last couple of weeks, the way that other actors and actresses speak in terms of how they confront their art. So I've been watching the Actors on Actors and the roundtable interviews with people like Lupita Nyong'o, Jennifer Lopez, Emma Stone, Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence. Who else has been in these interviews? Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio. Like the list goes on and on. And the thing is that no matter who the actor or actress is, they speak so differently about their art and the way they confront it than the way Blake does. And then that's the other thing also. Colleen falls in this category as well, in that she doesn't speak the way that these other artists speak. Mind you, I understand that she's a writer. However, the difference is noticeable, because what it comes down to is what the reason why I think Blake was successful in getting her hooks into all of the people that she did. And it's because when you listen to Blake and you listen to Colleen and you listen to Taylor, it's a lot of me, my, mine, I, me, my. And this is no cut. This is no cut to Taylor and her art. However, I am saying that I do believe that this is where the little corner that could be peeled up existed for Taylor specifically, and also for Colleen. And it's how Blake was able to get her hooks in and then peel it all back and get them invested the way that she did. Because when you listen to the other artists talk about being actors and actresses, they don't talk about me, my, mine, I. They talk about the character. When I was, and then insert the name of the character. And then the way that they talk about doing the things that they've done, they don't talk about themselves as themselves. They talk about themselves as if they were that character. You know, like, if they were talking about being in The Wizard of Oz as an example, they would talk about when I was Dorothy. Dorothy was motivated by this. Dorothy experienced this, and this. They didn't talk about who they were as a person. They didn't talk about their ownership of Dorothy. They didn't talk about how they wrote Dorothy or etc. It was Dorothy was a person who was from Kansas. Dorothy was a person who had a father who was like this, who lived in this setting, and everything. The way that they talk about performing these characters is from the standpoint as if they are that character. Whereas you listen to Colleen, you read these texts and these emails, and it's very much Blake is having the conversation with them, Colleen and Taylor, about authorship and my, me, my, I, and this was mine. I'm listed as this. I'm listed as that. Why wasn't I included? And so I think what ends up happening is because they operate from the same realm and understanding of white feminism, because in their minds, like Jamila Jamil was saying, she was correcting what feminism is, that it's about equity. And white feminism doesn't mean that it's patriarchy and misogyny simply inversed. That is not what feminism is. If you're really doing the work, if they really understood the work of, feminism, etc., they would understand that it falls under the umbrella of anti-racism. And when you're doing anti-racism, you are doing the work of decolonization. And I will say that word specifically because it makes me very frustrated and angry when people use the word deconstruction, because it also dismisses that the origin of the conversation started with Indigenous people, and we use the word colonization and deconstruction basically means that you still don't want to have the conversation about where the harm started and how far you have to go into doing this work of decolonization, not deconstruction, because what are you deconstructing? Colonization. Call it what it is. It gets me very frustrated when people do not use the word colonization and decolonization, because it tells me that you still have a fear of working within the world and realm of people that have been doing this work for decades on end, for centuries on end. And when you are able to do this work without fear, when you're able to do this work without the fear of being wrong, you will use the words that go the full length of the spectrum, and that's colonization and decolonization. Deconstruction means that you still want to hang on to your religion or whatever it is that's still falling under the umbrella of colonization, under the umbrella of white supremacy, and just make it safe enough for you and the people in your community, when the problem is that colonization will always be unsafe for Indigenous people. So use the words that we are using, because we are the ones that are being harmed the most. We are the reason why colonization existed, is because of the want and the need to control, overpower, dominate, and destroy Indigenous people who have always been in the way of colonization. Sorry, I'll get off of that soapbox, but here's the thing. So when these women are operating from white feminism and they're acting as if feminism means that it's patriarchy and misogyny inversed, they are paving over all of the other things that exist that are happening for Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath and Wayfair. They are trying to elevate marginalized voices, but when you have people who don't speak the language of social justice, they don't understand what Justin and Jamie are aiming for with the way that they're telling this story, the way that they wanted to uplift these voices. They wanted to uplift the voices of survivors. These women didn't care about the survivors. What they cared about is what recognition Blake was getting or not getting, and what recognition, what power and control Colleen had or didn't have over her telling of the story. But the problem is that they don't speak the language of social justice. So when they started to take this over and turn it into a franchise opportunity to sell florals and make, drinks, that was moving away from the social justice language that Wayfarer wanted to use. They didn't understand it. And so they engaged in feminism the way that they believe feminism is constructed, and that is patriarchy and misogyny inversed. They believed that when he said he was a feminist, that it meant that he would lay down and do whatever they wanted, and that if he didn't give in to her wants, needs, and desires, that it meant he wasn't a feminist. But feminism isn't about a lack of equity. Feminism is about restoring the balance between masculine and feminine, and Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath were the people who should be leading this project, because they were the ones who bought the rights to tell this story, and they had a plan that wasn't patriarchy and misogyny, simply inversed. And they didn't like it because they don't understand the language of social justice, the things that they wanted to do with the telling of this story. And that is why I am so disappointed in Taylor, and then so distraught and frustrated and upset that Colleen and Blake completely derailed the telling of the story that would have uplifted the voices of survivors. And instead, all they thought about is, how much power and control do I have over this project, and how much credit am I getting?